9.8 million years ago, the world moved to a rhythm entirely its own. Earth was warmer, wilder, and far more humid than the planet we know today. The continents had drifted into roughly familiar positions, but the landscapes were unrecognizable. Africa was greener, Europe, half-tropical Asia, wrapped in endless forest belts, and the oceans shimmered with life left over from an older age. It was a planet in balance, yet perpetually transforming a planet preparing the stage for something new. The first creatures that would one day become human. Imagine standing on the edge of an African jungle. In that age, the air presses heavy on your skin, filled with the constant chorus of insects and birds that have no modern equivalents. Trees tower. Above you, their branches draped in vines and bromeliads. The light filters through thick canopies, creating a green twilight where giant dragonflies dart and small mammals scurry through ferns, older than any civilization. The ground is soft with decades of fallen leaves, and somewhere in the shadows, a rustle betrays the presence of something large. A primate perhaps, or a cat-like hunter, waiting for an opening across these humid forests. Live our ancient relative species that bridge the line between ape and what would one day become. Man dryopithecus swings through the branches with powerful, deliberate grace. Its long arms and flexible joints are built for climbing its mind, primitive but curious. It does not yet walk upright, but its hands reveal a spark of intelligence. It grips fruits carefully, uses sticks to test unknown textures, and hesitates before leaping in the dense undergrowth. Another ape species, sivapithecus, surveys the forest. From a high branch, its face resembles that of a modern orangutan flat. Expressive, almost eerily human when it pauses to gaze across the canopy. These creatures have no concept of the future. Yet, in their movements, lie the first faint echoes of the destiny that will shape the world. The earth beneath these trees thrums with life herds of ancient elephants smaller than their modern cousins move along riverbanks trampling ferns and leaving trails that will one day become fossils. Nearby, early horses, three-toed and nimble, graze on young grass that has just begun to spread across the continents. The global climate is shifting forests, once endless, begin to give way to patches of open woodland and grassland. With every degree of cooling, species must choose adapt or vanish in. Europe's subtropical forests stretch across the Mediterranean basin, teeming with monkeys, tapirs, and antelope. Like animals, giant birds roam the clearings. Some flightless, others capable of gliding short distances from branch to branch. The night sky glows with a clarity unknown today, free of human light and noise, and each dawn brings the sound of thunder from clouds thick with moisture drawn from warm seas. Asia, in contrast, is a continent of extremes. The Himalayas are rising higher, their snowcaps feeding rivers that carve vast plains below on the Indian subcontinent. Sivapithecus competes with other mammals for fruit in increasingly fragmented forests. To the north, great cats with elongated teeth, early forms of saber-toothed stalk their prey silently, their bodies sleek and built for ambush. When one strikes, the forest erupts with shrieks and crashing branches. Within seconds, the struggle ends, leaving only silence and the metallic scent of blood on humid air further west. In what will one day become Africa's Rift Valley, tectonic forces are reshaping the landscape. Volcanoes rise and die in cycles of eruption and erosion, spreading ash that fertilizes the land lakes, form and vanish over millennia, drawing countless species to their shores. The ancestors of crocodiles lurk in these waters, their patience measured in geological time. Fish species here trace their lineage to ancient oceans that existed before the breakup of Gondwana. The balance of predator and prey is perfect. Though constantly tested by drought, flood, and fire, among all these dramas, the primates stand apart, not in power, but in potential. Dryopithecus, for instance, exhibits a subtle shift in behavior unseen in most other creatures. It spends time watching others, learning by observation. When fruit becomes scarce, it remembers which trees ripened earlier in the season and travels farther to find them. This memory, this capacity to anticipate, is the seed of cognition. It does not yet know, fear of tomorrow, or dream of the future. but instinct is evolving into awareness. Evolution rarely announces itself. It creeps quietly hidden in muscles, bones and thoughts that flicker just a little longer than before, in the late afternoons, as rain. Clouds gather the forest glow with a golden light. Thunder rolls in the distance, and entire ecosystems hold their breath. The scent of wet soil rises mixing with the musk of animals. Frogs call in rhythmic patterns that echo through the trees. The first drops strike leaves the size of shields, and within moments a torrent pours down. Apes huddle under branches. Small mammals retreat into hollows. The storm washes away the dust, nourishing the roots and resetting the cycle of life once again. Across the planet, oceans mirror these changes. The Atlantic teems with whales whose songs can travel for hundreds of kilometers. Sharks older than mountains patrol the deep, while schools of early tuna glint like silver arrows beneath the surface. Coral reefs thrive in the warm shallows, constructing vast underwater cities. Sea turtles the size of cars crawl onto beaches to lay eggs under the pale moonlight. Every life form, from the tiniest plankton to the largest leviathan, is part of a rhythm that has existed for millions of years and will continue for millions more unless interrupted by change. That change is already in motion. Earth's orbit wobbles, altering sunlight patterns. Polar ice slowly grows and melts in cycles that sculpt the climate. Dust carried by the wind begins to fertilize oceans in ways unseen before. With every subtle shift, species rise and fall. The great forests of Africa start to fragment. Clearings widen and new plants. Grasses begin to dominate those who cannot. Adapt to open terrain, fade into extinction. Those who can learn to move between trees and plains survive. And among them are the apes that will eventually give rise to Australopithecus. Millions of years later, the path toward humanity is neither straight nor certain, but it has begun on the plains of what will one day be Ethiopia. A small group of primates ventures farther than usual in search of food. They climb down from trees, more often balancing awkwardly on two limbs, while using the other two for support. When the sun beats down, they shade their eyes and scan the distance. Each step they take on open ground is a quiet revolution in evolution, an experiment in survival that will echo through time. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of Africa, massive herbivores shape the land itself. Giant rhinos graze in meadows, while ancient relatives of pigs root through mud for roots and insects. Elephants, primitive but social, trumpet to each other across valleys. Their migration routes carve paths that rivers will one day follow where they walk. Seeds germinate in their dung, spreading forests mile by mile. The connection between species is absolute. One's movement defines another's. Life predators stalk. This abundance, a massive cat, its fangs curved like daggers, crouches low in tall grass. Its eyes lock onto a juvenile horse grazing too far from the herd. The wind shifts, carrying scent. Muscles tighten in a heartbeat. The cat leaps, closing the distance, in silence, until the final second when instinct drives it forward in a blur of power. The struggle lasts moments. The herd flees, dust rising behind them. Nature takes what it needs without cruelty, without mercy. Night descends swiftly in this world. The jungle hums with unseen activity. Bats fill the sky in clouds that darken the moonlight. Owls, ancestors of today's hunters, watch silently from twisted branches. The scent of blossoms opens under cooler air, drawing insects and the creatures that feed on them. A baby dryopithecus clings to its mother as she climbs higher into the canopy to sleep secure in the crook of a tree that has stood for centuries. Somewhere distant, volcanic fire glows against the horizon, illuminating clouds that will rain ash by morning on the ocean. Shore's waves crash with relentless power. Crabs scuttle across wet sand. Their tracks soon erased, giant tortoises drag their shells towards safety. Slow but unstoppable lightning flashes over the sea, revealing the shadows of massive creatures just below the surface. Ancient whales breaching in arcs of spray before vanishing again into darkness. Each wave that rolls toward land carries whispers of the planet's vast and ongoing story over the next thousands of years. This world continues to evolve. Mountains rise higher, deserts spread and forests shrink. The balance shifts from lush jungles to open savannas. Rainfall patterns change. Driving migrations that test every species, extinctions occur quietly, not in cataclysm, but in the slow tightening of survival. Yet from each loss comes adaptation. The primates that endure become stronger, more versatile, more aware of their surroundings. When faced with danger, they communicate in gestures and sounds, more complex than mere cries, signals of warning, perhaps even the first sparks of social intelligence. A female sivapithecus observes another using a branch to reach fruit beyond normal grasp. The idea takes hold, she imitates, and success brings satisfaction. It is a simple act, but it marks a moment when the mind begins to manipulate the environment rather than submit to it. Evolution advances in these quiet experiments, not in battles or cataclysms, but in thought, the invisible frontier. As millennia roll by, the climate continues to cool. Polar regions accumulate ice reflecting sunlight and lowering global temperatures. Grasslands expand across continents, pushing tropical forests toward the equator. Rivers carve deeper channels, exposing mineral deposits and altering migration routes. Species that once ruled the canopies now struggle to find food, forcing them to explore the ground more frequently. Some perish, others by accident or adaptation. Learn to balance upright if, only for a few steps, those few steps will one day lead to humanity's first footprints in Europe. Changing weather patterns create seasonal extremes. Winters grow harsher, summers shorter. Animals develop thicker fur, stronger limbs and more specialized diets. The once tropical landscape becomes a mosaic of forest plain and mountain volcanoes. In the Mediterranean release ash that fertilizes the soil, but also darkens the sky for months at a time. Entire valleys transform within a generation. Nature remains impartial, rewarding only flexibility. Meanwhile, in Africa, the Rift Valley continues to deepen. Lakes appear and disappear, with climatic swings leaving layers of sediment that will one day hold fossils telling this very story. The apes here grow slightly larger brains compared to their forest cousins. They observe predators, test new foods, and learn to recognize patterns in the sky and land. These patterns stored somewhere in their growing awareness will guide the behavior of future generations. The slow birth of intelligence is underway by now. 9.8 million years ago feels like a world both alien and familiar. The same sun shines, but its heat falls on a planet untouched by civilization. The same moon rises, but its light reveals only wilderness. Every sound, every gust of wind, every scent of rain carries a sense of timelessness. And yet within this endless cycle, evolution is building towards something extraordinary. The creatures of this era cannot know it, but their struggles, migrations, and small adaptations are weaving the foundation for consciousness itself. A storm gathers over the equatorial plains. Thunder booms shaking trees to their roots. Lightning splits the sky, igniting dry brush fire sweeps across grasslands, forcing animals to flee. Some die, others learn that the aftermath of flame brings tender shoots. Easier. Feeding fire becomes a recurring teacher, terrifying yet renewing. Long before humanity learns to control it, fire shapes behavior, teaching survival through observation and timing. In the centuries that follow, ecosystems stabilize once more. New species evolve from old ones. Some migrate across land bridges formed by lower sea levels. Africa and Eurasia share faunas blending, genetic lines that will diversify again when barriers rise later. The planet breathes in slow rhythms of expansion and contraction, of extinction and emergence. Life continues not as a straight line, but as a tangled web where each thread strengthens or breaks in response to change somewhere in this complex web. The lineage that will lead to us endures the apes who balance between forest and grassland. Learn cooperation, warning each other of predators, sharing shelter during storms, grooming. To maintain bonds, social structure becomes survival strategy. Through this constant interaction, emotional intelligence begins to form the ability to read expressions to comfort, to fear, not only for oneself, but for others. This more than muscle. Or fang will prove the most powerful adaptation of all the seasons roll endlessly on drought. Alternates with flood growth with decay seeds scattered by windsprout. In unexpected places, animals follow and forests shift across the land. Insects evolve rapidly. Birds adapt to new feeding grounds, and reptiles retreat to cooler refuges. Each dawn sees millions of tiny dramas unfold. Birth hunger, pursuit, escape. Each one essential to the great chain of being, and still in a quiet corner of a forest clearing. A young primate sits, watching the rain. Its eyes follow the droplets as they ripple the surface of a puddle. It touches the water, then looks at the reflection trembling there for a moment. Perhaps just a second, it recognizes movement that mirrors its own. The concept of self is born not in speech or reason, but in reflection and wonder. That single flicker of awareness buried in time will one day bloom into thought language and civilization when we look back from our modern world of machines, lights, and cities. It is almost impossible to imagine such an age and Earth ruled entirely by instinct and survival. Yet every human breath carries traces of that era. The same oxygen that fed those forests, the same water that flowed through ancient rivers, the same DNA that once belonged to creatures like dryopithecus and sivapithecus. The line of life is unbroken. 9.8 million years ago, the world was not waiting for us. It was simply being, but within its endless cycles of storm and calm, birth and death, adaptation and loss, nature sculpted minds capable of curiosity, memory, and imagination. Those minds would eventually name the stars, carve tools, build civilizations, and look back across time to ask where. It all began, and it began here beneath the thick canopies and roaring skies of a world both savage and serene, where apes dreamed without knowing they were dreaming, where the seeds of humanity took root in silence. Life 9.8 million years ago was not just the past of our planet, it was the foundation of our existence. The first faint heartbeat of a story still unfolding today.